You wanna know why I don't suck at Battlefield 6? Most people with bad aim try to fix the issue by obsessing over target switching, but this often leads to minimalistic results or just slightly faster hand speed. What I see is a lot of issues with hitting the first couple of bullets and actually tracking after a completed flick. This leads to a person who can move fast but not control it afterwards. This creates two main problems. First, it limits your ability to get your first shots on target. A separation in your flicking, micro, and tracking will lead to prolonged TTK because every action requires a halt and readjustment. Not only that, if you're constantly missing your first 1 to 5 shots, those are bullets you could have landed right away. Secondly, what I see is an inability to handle basic left and right tracking patterns after those rushed in flicks you've trained. What then happens is an inability to smoothly transition between these three main components. So people try to focus on the flashy game style and don't see success because they're not addressing the root cause, which is the ability to properly combine all aim elements with every single flick that we make. You can't just spin your mouse like you're trying to launch a Beyblade and expect consistency. Instead of separating our target switching into a flick, micro, and tracking part, we're going to work to combine these three into one swoop motion. This may limit your speed at first, but only if you allow it to. It's possible for you to focus on clean actions while pushing yourself. You're not limited to one action at a time, but if this is difficult for you, focus on accuracy first, creating that backbone you need to hit those flashy flicks. Think of it like going to the gym. Nobody walks in benching 200 kilos on day one, unless you're a meat. And to prove this isn't just theory, let me tell you about Octavio, a Battlefield player I coached. Octavio came to me struggling with everything, and he noticed that in every duel he'd either miss his opening shot or get stuck dragging his crosshair behind the enemy. After running some scenarios, we figured out his biggest problem was actually those wasted movements. So he built a plan around combining flicking, micro, and tracking into one smooth flow. His routine started with 2 weeks of fundamentals with progressive jumps in difficulty, followed by scenarios that force him to flick and track smoothly. By the end of the first week, we had already improved, and he sent me this clip. The turning point isn't that he'll be posting montages anytime soon, but in a short duration, I'm taking an aimer with no sense of direction and making him land clips. His words to me after reading the analysis were this. And honestly, that's the type of moments that proves the system works. Don't forget, you also need to be able to move and shoot. People forget that movement TS is very important and not something that goes away when you're in game, so don't ignore it. Here's some recommended scenarios and playlists. Secondly, we address the first shot accuracy. Here's what most people get wrong. They isolate one particular scenario they believe is effective. Instead of hitting wide wall, micros, and pushing themselves with a reflex scenario, they'll remain stuck on their favorite scenarios. Two key parts here: horizontal flicking and micros will greatly benefit your aim. Microstatic isn't just for Valorant. It's a key part in knowing how to make these finite movements often required for flicking or even tracking. The biggest part I don't want you to miss is handling pressure, because moving your hand fast is not enough if you whiff the first 3 bullets. Throw in pressure scenarios, reflex scenarios, and information scenarios. Generally scenarios that force you to move with the urgency in-game requires. And urgency is massively slept on. Before we move on, don't forget dynamic, because targets actually move in Battlefield unless you're fighting a benchmark demon. You'll actually need to adjust to real motion. Here's some more recommended playlists. Lastly, the tracking part. People forget you move a lot when shooting. Use movement tracking. Don't get used to standing still and making all that practice go out the window because you haven't accounted for your own movements. In Battlefield, there's mainly horizontal and depth tracking, and if you can't track a centering scenario in Kovaaks that purely moves in a predictable straight line, you won't be able to track a target doing the same in-game. The precision element is also heavily required for smooth aim, because unclean aim is often sporadic. It comes off as random because you're shooting different body parts as opposed to staying perfectly glued. Using my latest SYA precision found in my STS2 benchmarks will greatly help with this. And trust me, smooth aim isn't just for cool looking clips, it's for surviving when 2 guys jump you at once like it's Ram Ranch. Here's some more recommended scenarios and playlists. So if you want Battlefield 6 aim that doesn't feel like it's controlled by a drunk pigeon, stop spamming TS like your favorite aimer, build that first shot accuracy, combine everything into one flow, and account for the movements you create. That's how you commit to a real consistency instead of relying on random ass muscle spasms.